Good evening and welcome. Welcome to the live Q&A session for Alamar. My name is Ana Blanco and it's my pleasure and my honor to welcome everyone here this evening. Really want to welcome everyone who's here with us on our live stream and also welcome our 4 guests that we have online with us. We were just talking beforehand and I was mentioning how this would have been our in-person Friday night, 7 p.m. surf program within the International Film Festival. So in some ways, we're kind of replicating the same event, but we're doing it online. So as many of you know, the International Ocean Film Festival is held every year in March. It's a 4-day film festival bringing people from all over the world to learn about the ocean, to experience independent films that they wouldn't otherwise be able to see. And it's a real platform for engaging in conversation about some of the key issues that are taking place in our ocean these days, and what we can do to help protect our ocean for future generations as well as for us on our everyday lives. So when we had to postpone, we didn't realize we would be where we are here today, but we're very fortunate to have a live stream capacity to do our Q&As. We also have all of our films online 24/7. And we're excited that we have this possibility, and our new theme for this year is Reconnecting Summer 2020. So we started on Thursday. We go through August 9th. We have over 14 Q&As similar to this one scheduled. So it's a great opportunity to be able to learn about the ocean and watch amazing ocean films from the comfort of your home. So if you haven't seen LMR yet, and if you haven't seen some of the other films, I strongly encourage you to do so. So before we get started, I do want to say thank you. And this is a really, really special film for me, myself. I grew up in Peru. My dad is from Peru. He's in Trujillo now, and he lives very close to Chicama. I lived there. I went to high school there. And unfortunately, I did not learn how to surf while I was there, my biggest regret. But I go back often enough. And so hopefully, I still have that opportunity. But also, more importantly, this is an opportunity for me to meet 2 new friends in Lima, but also bring 2 friends that I've had the pleasure of knowing over a long period of time while I've been involved with the film festival. And so I will introduce them to you as we speak. I'm going to start with our special guest, Bruno Monteferri, who is joining us from Lima, Peru. Bruno is an environmental lawyer with the Peruvian Society of Environmental Law, and he also is the founder of Conservamos por Naturaleza, which is the producer of this film. And welcome, Bruno.
Thank you, Ana.
We also have Carolina Butrich, who is the project coordinator with Conservamos la Naturaleza, and she is the project coordinator for Asla Portuola, which I would love to hear more about that when you guys have a minute. Welcome, Carolina.
Thank you, Ana, and thanks everyone who's watching.
And let's move it over now to my dear friend, Nick. Nick is with Save the Waves, executive director of Save the Waves. I think we've known each other for as long as I've been in the film festival, which is over 10 years now. I won't even try to pronounce your last name, except say that you're known here as Ceviche, which I'm sure you know. But love what you guys are doing. Love that you're able to join us, and love that you were in the film as well. So thank you, Nick, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be with 2 friends, albeit very far away from my friend Ana. So I guess 4 friends, but I might have to move. My internet doesn't seem super.
Love your background, though. There you go. That might be a little bit better. And you're muted. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for being here. And lastly, but not leastly, my dear friend, Scott Atkinson, who is a partner and with Heidrick and Struggles. He's also, Heidrick is also a sponsor of the film festival for this year, so thank you for that. A dear friend, a surfer, and our moderator for this evening. So thank you, Scott, and welcome.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. Just before we get going, I want to say on behalf of our audience, on behalf of the panel, we all just wanted to thank you, Anna and Sebastian, your board, and everyone working at the International Ocean Film Festival for finding a way to make the festival happen this year. I mean, putting on an international film festival in the middle of a global pandemic and delivering such an awesome experience virtually for us to be inspired by films like Alamar. I mean, we are very, very grateful that you made this special event happen. And so thank you from all of us tuning in and participating in the event. So
my pleasure. And as we said earlier, I look forward to seeing all of you next year in person. We already have the dates, March 11 to 14, 2021, for Surf Night next year. So fingers crossed that will be able to happen. So thank you so much. Scott, I'll let you take it away. You might just want to remind people that we will have time for Q&A afterwards. So
you've already handled it.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Gracias,
Anna.
Ana.
Thanks, Anna.
Gracias.
Te esperamos
Bye.
en Perú para el surf.
Okay, gracias.
So thanks for joining, everybody. As Anna mentioned, I'm a partner at Heidrick & Struggles. I'm a headhunter. So what I do is help build teams and organizations like Planet Labs, San Diego Zoo, National Geographic, Impossible Foods. I don't have experience in filmmaking. I'm not an ecologist or an author like Carl Safina, who is going to be doing a Q&A on Wednesday. I'm not an environmental lawyer like Bruno. So I'm without a doubt the least qualified moderator of any of the Q&As at the film festival this year. So that's the award I'm going to be giving myself, maybe even of all time. And as it relates to Alamar, the film we're doing on, I don't speak Spanish. This entire film is in Spanish. I can barely read the subtitles in English. So anyway, woefully unqualified, as Nick will can attest to. But I am a surfer. And like many of you in the audience, I believe surfing and ocean advocacy go hand in hand. And I believe in protecting what you love. And so I volunteer at a grassroots level with people who I believe in personally, like Anna and Nick at Save the Waves, and Scott R. Atkinson and Louisa Tam at Conservation International, and Andrea Crosta at Earth League International, on initiatives that protect our coastal ecosystems in partnership with our local communities. And tonight, you're joining us for Surf Night, which, as Anna mentioned, it's typically a raucous night with a lot of liveliness and energy and personality. And it's really humbling for me to be sitting here with Bruno and Carolina and Nick, leaders who understand the importance of storytelling to shift attitudes, drive behavior change, and potentially create lasting policy changes. And I realize I'm standing between all of you in a phenomenal panel, but one last thing. Alamar is a story of the grassroots movements to protect Peruvian surf breaks. And thanks to this, today, Peru is the first country in the world to have a law focused specifically on the protection of surf breaks and their environment. And this film, for me, and hopefully for all of you, serves as an invitation for all of us, not just surfers, to replicate this initiative in the places where we live and the places we love. So with that, we're going to kick it off to our wonderful panelists. And maybe the first thing that we can just talk about, I mean, look, we were all supposed to be in person, but here we are virtually in the middle of a pandemic. And the irony here is we're talking about a film called Alamar, To the Sea, but being in the sea, surfing the sea, many cases, it's much more difficult. And I'd like to start just asking a simple question, which is, that during a global pandemic, why does this film matter? And Bruno, maybe we can start with you and go around the horn and talk, get everybody's perspective on why this is an important film currently during the global pandemic.
Totally. Thank you, Scott. Well, first thing is that during the pandemic, most of us were not able to surf. No, I don't know how it was for you guys, but for me, for Carolina, that we're used to when we're in Lima. Lima is a very chaotic city, and one of the ways how we can handle to be in Lima is because we have the ocean just across many of our houses. It's 5 minutes away from our houses. But suddenly, surfing became a crime. You couldn't go surfing, and for most of us, that's what makes us be like sane, happy, full of energy. No, so what I will say, like related to Alamar, is that, and we were talking about this with Nick before, is how important are these public spaces where we can just connect with other ways of other frequencies. For me, like the sea has been always like the best psychologist. Like I could be like full of work and I go to the sea for a bit, and I love to go to places where there's not many people. One of my favorite places to surf is a place called Pico Alto, which is like 1 mile away from the coast. So just being there with some friends, like you have a good time, and I mean, like you don't realize what you have until you don't have it. No, so I think that's what the pandemic made us think about, and then like the first time I could go back to the sea and remember my first roller was like I felt that I had like captured all this energy for 2 months of doing like just training with the carver. It felt so nice, no? So I hope that appreciation like doesn't become something just anecdotic, no? And it really like drives like people to take care of these places, no?
Can I just make one little small like asterisk on that? Bruno's favorite wave that he likes to go and escape and have fun is Pico Alto, which if those of you don't know Peruvian surfing, that's basically like saying, oh, you know, I just like to unroll and relax by just catching a few waves at Mavericks with my friends. Bruno's extremely humble surfer, but he is very fearless and very talented in big waves. So don't let his very professional demeanor fool you. He actually can ride some of the world's best waves with some of the world's best surfers. So that's just my asterisk to kind of say Pico Alto is not like I'm going to go longboarding at Waikiki. It's a different thing.
Nick, you know, sometimes Bruno comes to the office like 9 o'clock and he's been already in Pico Alto for like 2 hours, and then he has a meeting and he's like with his shirt and everything, and it's like it's been surfing massive waves.
The best way to start a day.
Are you secretive about it, Bruno, or you walk in almost wet still from being in the ocean?
No, I think it's really hard to like hide that you've been in the ocean, like especially with the green that you have in your face, and sometimes if you actually get like this like really like bad sunscreen, you end up like having all this like your face covered in white. But it's accepted.
You should see the WhatsApp feed that I get every now and again from Bruno. It's sort of like, oh, I was just down in Chile for a little bit, and there was a couple really fun waves, and then I'll get these things, and it's like this monster top to bottom, like 4 meter, just gnarly thick barrel, and I'll be like, you just went down to, you just were like, happened to be just getting completely barreled on your work trip? Like, wow. So we have a very funny feed of where he sends me impressive pictures and I send wipeout shots back to him of me eating it.
Well, Bruno and Carolina, I mean, obviously surfing was partly the inspiration behind the film, but in your own words, could you tell us a little bit about what inspired Alamar and the process by which you two went through to create the film?
Yes, I think both of us have the passion for the ocean since we are really young. I'm a passionate surfer. I was competing for Peru in windsurfing for a lot of years before I ended up working in wave protection. I was traveling around the world looking for the best waves and best wind conditions. And I think there's where this passion comes from, the same as Nick, the same as Bruno. we want these places we love and that gives us so much. You know, Bruno was talking about how this surfing a wave is like going to the psychologist. I think it's the same for most of us that have this connection with the ocean. So the wave protection campaign comes from this passion. And I think the A la Mar comes from wanting to share this story with the rest of the world. On one hand, as you said, the potential and the strength of storytelling. And on the other hand, to inspire more people to take action and showing that we as citizens, as surfers, we can do something and we can get organized and come together and protect the places we love. And the same as you said, Scott, it doesn't have to be surfers. It can be like kayakers protecting the rivers or like climbers protecting the mountains. Like if we get organized, we can generate a huge impact protecting our natural heritage.
What? Go ahead, Bruno.
No, I was gonna say that it's definitely what like Carolina just said, but it was also like saying thank you to like all these generations of Peruvians that have been like working to protect surf breaks. Because like as soon as you start working on environmental issues, you realize that if you stand alone, it's very hard to do any like significant change. You know, like the power is in collaboration, in articulating people. And I think one of the beautiful things of this initiative was that there's been 3 different generations that each one of them had groups of people that decided to do something. And it was like that continuity of people that when somebody was like tired, somebody else started putting all their energy and that allowed to make these things to actually happen. Because at the end, like you have all these public officers changing all the time. And unless that you have like an engaged civil society groups like working through time, like seeing all these public officers change, but being persistent about what you need to make to protect, no, like it would not have happened. So it was really nice to like in the film you will see Javier Fernandez. Javier Fernandez he created the first NGO in Peru specialized at protecting surf breaks and beaches. And he, at that time, he actually went to the NGO where Carolina and I work, the Peruvian Society for Environmental Law, and got the advice and counsel from my first boss, who's Pedro Solano, and he helped him to create this NGO and give all this advice. So it's funny how at the end, like these groups of people continue to be engaged and have made this happen.
But this was the crazy thing. Like we had the idea to share the story, but while doing it, we start discovering so many things about this because the wave protection movement in Peru has over 30 years. So it was amazing to like discover so many things. And for the ones who have already seen the movie, you know that. And for the ones who haven't seen it, I encourage you to see it because it's a really nice story. And as Bruno said, like it comes from a lot of people. It's not just us. Like now it's Nick and Bruno and me here, but we are in representation of a lot of people that are behind this movement.
What was the I mean, without spoiling the movie for those that haven't seen it, but in terms of one thing that was most surprising to you, Carolina, what was an aha moment or discovery that you made during the course of creating the film?
Well, I think something crazy we always talk with Bruno was that the original idea of this, like having this register of protected surf breaks, came actually from the Navy. Like the organization was created, like Bruno said, and people wanted to do this, create some mechanism to protect surf breaks, and the Navy actually sent a letter, and Javier Fernandez has this everything stored, like he has the files with all the papers and all the letters back from the 80s, and it was like the letter when they say, okay, we should generate this register with all the surf breaks in Peru, and it was amazing to see this, like to see this letter and see how things developed like more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
One thing that's really, to me, that's really super, super powerful about the story is I think the surf community and the environmental community within Peru have been very close for a long time. I mean, sure, there's divisions probably, and I think it's very, very sophisticated, the level of A, surfing, B, of the way that it's penetrated the culture, and then see the environmental consciousness around there to actually get it to a point where there's effective, there's an effective legal strategy that's being implemented on the scale that they have and the complexity of a program to really bring it to fruition. I think that sometimes within the Peruvian scene, it feels like it's been going for a long time and it's finally gotten to this place where it's really gaining traction. But I think from the outside, it's so advanced in comparison to other countries. We don't have California, for example, the state sport is surfing. There's no protective legislation for surf spots in California. There's places within state parks, and I think there's a lot of people that are looking at the Peruvian model and being like, how do we do this? And I know exactly because we've been working on it together in Chile and looking at Mexico and places in Costa Rica, and it's blooming kind of in a lot of different countries. And I think it's really amazing the commitment of groups like Conservamos to get this to where it is, and the work that's been done, I think, gets sort of almost understated in this really impressive film because it really has ramifications beyond just Peru, and that's to me what's so impressive about it.
Yeah, and just building on that, like Nick, it's interesting. Like I know from I guess there's people that will look at this interview from different parts of the world, and if you live in a country like Australia or New Zealand, the institutionality, the governance system, it's already better built to plan things on a more, integral, holistic way, let's say. You have a coastal commission, like in California. Mm-hmm. So yeah. That coastal commission has some power to actually decide what should be done in that space. I think in countries in the global south, it's more there's all this interest being get together, especially in the coast. Coasts have the largest pressures in the world because most of the population lives in coastal cities. So you have the interest from the tourism sector, from the mining, sometimes oil. You have the ports, the same cities, sewages, and unless that you make your statement and your interest heard, they're gonna just go through your waves or through your surf breaks or your beaches, no? So I think in especially for places like the global south, where you are still not in the level where you can have a coastal commission or a marine spatial planning process, having this kind of laws or registries that protect surf breaks might be a really good idea. And what we also learned from this process is that the fact that it's a registry to protect surf breaks was not seen as a protected area. We can talk later about also protected areas as a mechanism, because we think it should be a mechanism to protect surf breaks. But for instance, in Peru, to protect a marine protected area, it's harder and harder every time because it's seen as against development, no? You're going to restrict some extractive industries, for instance. But when you put someone we're going to protect a surf break and it's for tourism and it's for recreation, nobody saw it that it's going to be a restriction on to use the area, no? So it was interesting to see that while marine protected areas were being you had all these limitations to create them, this process was able to continue, no?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting component about sport, and that's why I think, particular again from my outside viewpoint, in Peru, because surfing has got this very long legacy. And for people that may not realize, surfing has been practiced pretty actively since the 40s in Peru. The first world champion was Peruvian, so it has this institutional and cultural thing about sport. Surfing has more world champions in Peru than I think any other sport, right? Maybe there's something that I don't know, but in terms of surfing, it's an area where Peru as a country is very dominant in terms of the sports world. And so I think sometimes when you frame conservation, not in terms of restriction and development versus greenies, but in terms of sport and culture, then it's very different because it appeals to a different type of it appeals almost to a nationalist sentiment, for better or for worse. And so in places like Brazil, where to be an environmentalist is almost a black mark, but if you start talking about, you know, the Brazilian world champs of surfing, that's actually going to advance the conversation around conservation much further than if you just said, hey, let's make a bunch of marine protected areas on the coast. So I think in a lot of ways, you guys have been out front of that too.
Yeah, we were building a lot on the idea of surf breaks as a natural stadium, you know, because there's a lot of support in Peru for football, you know, like everyone loves football. We haven't won too many tournaments, to be honest, but everyone loves football. But like, it was really good that all the surfers that were like world champions from Peru, like in the ISA tournaments, they made that statement once and again, like, we need the government, we need the Congress, we need the executive power to protect our natural stadiums. And as you like build like soccer fields across the country and you spend all this money, the only thing we need is that you guys don't mess up with the places where we can practice our sport, no? So it was really like clear, no?
I was just going to say, one of the most interesting parts of the film for me was seeing the two communities of stakeholders that you focus on, both the surfers and the fishermen. And by the way, you know, we're talking about many generations of surfers that are advancing laws on protection. We also get a glimpse of many generations of fishermen, and that friction, I'm sure, was interesting from a storytelling perspective, Bruno and Carolina, just to make sure that, you know, as surfers, you didn't necessarily come with a biased view, but you were telling the complete, you know, story on what was really transpiring and how those communities came together. I don't know if you can speak about the story behind the stakeholders at all, but I found it to be very interesting.
Yeah, the thing is that, like, I don't want to ruin the movie for the ones who haven't seen it, but it was very difficult because these two groups, like the surfers and the fishermen, were like, it was not so strong, but they were against each other, but they should have been against like the government that were doing the things unplanned, you know. But you know, the fishermen needed a new pier, and the surfers wanted to protect the waves. But what should have happened is that the government should have planned and do something that a pier that didn't ruin the wave, and both would have been happy. But it was really difficult, and I think it was hard to show both perspectives because after such a long time of it was almost 30 years of this friction with the fishermen, and then in the last years the groups have come together in order to fight for the same things. They realized that they should have not be against each other. They should be together, and they would be stronger. But it was hard to show these two perspectives. But yeah, no. I'm happy. Like, definitely was something we wanted to show because, yeah, at the end, the ocean is, they are raised and live in the ocean, and it's also like a tribute to them, you know, like the fishermen that are living in these wonderful places.
Yeah, I have to say, like, the initial script of the film, like when we wrote that, it was different. But then when we made all these interviews in Cabo Blanco, and like we saw, like, that was like for a documentary, that was the conflict, no? Like you had that story, like, was evident that we had to focus more on that, no? And the other thing became more accessory, like the whole process of how we were able to protect the surf breaks. Definitely if you will do like more like a journalistic film, like you tell the whole story, but for that specific documentary, that was the richness of the emotions, the positions. It was really difficult for us, like personally, like I've been working with local communities for the last 15 years. I've always been the local advice, the lawyer for the local community facing a threat. And suddenly, like it was like in 2010, I was working as an advisor for the Peruvian Surfing Federation. and we had been in all these negotiations with the fishermen, trying to, because, okay, like this, it's a long story, you know, but there's different moments across history of this beach where the government actually like tries to put a pier on the wrong place. So we got to this agreement with them, and it's a very tense moment. The Surfing Federation is opposing the the idea of putting a new pier in a place that's going to destroy not only the wave that has already been destroyed, but the next one, which is Panic Point. There's these two amazing waves, one next to another, one that breaks with the north swells and the other one with the south swells. They had already like not destroyed, but definitely like create a damage to the Cabo Blanco wave, and now the government was going to do the same to the other wave, no? So in that all that negotiation, the regional government and the municipal government and this invites the Surfing Federation to go to a meeting. And I talked to the president of the Surfing Federation, and he's like, well, I cannot go because I have this commitment. So I talked to the vice president. He's like, no, I can also not go. And at the end, nobody was going to go. And we had been like fighting like for 6 months to get to an agreement, and nobody was going. So at the end, I got into a plane and went to speak to the fishermen and with the authorities. And it was going to be like this very, like, it was a meeting between authorities. Suddenly I go to the municipality and they are like, no, we're gonna make the meeting not here in the municipal hall. It's going to be in the fishermen, no, like we're in their local, no? So okay, I go with my car, no, like I go to the fisherman's place, and suddenly it's like 600 fishermen, no,
Wow.
from the communities of Cabo Blanco, and they had made that all the local fishermen from the neighboring towns also came because they wanted to make their voice be like really heard. So the regional government comes, everyone comes, and it was the most difficult meeting I've had been in my life. I started speaking and they would be like wooing, like, you know, like, wow, no, you're a liar, get out of here. Like, if basically they want me to sign a paper that said that the pier was gonna make where had to be done in that day, like wherever they wanted.
Wow.
So and I was like, no, I'm not gonna sign this, and try to like go through the meeting, like trying to say how I recognize the errors of not having a better dialogue, and no, like trying to capture the agreements between all of them. And they were like, it was really interesting, no, because like they were like, you know, Colorado is like, you know, like if you don't sign this, you're not gonna get out of here alive. But it was a lot of like acting by the fishermen's like leaders. Because at the end of the meeting, I went with them to have a beer and eat a ceviche, and they were like, you know, like it's the first time that that surfers come into this on this way and talk to us, and from that, I think like it changed completely the dialogue and the relationship with them. Like we started working more with them, and there's a generation of surfers that had this like conflict with the fishermen, and then there's the new generation that have been like much more closer to them. And that allowed us to actually get to at the end to a kind of a solution in terms of what happened at the end with the pier, no? But like that meeting, like we didn't put that in the film, but it was crazy.
Wow.
I think it's interesting of what Bruno says, and we've talked with Nick and Bruno before, is that it's these changes, like how we should relate to local communities. Like some surfers or some people would like go and with a big car and then park in the beach and then with the music and go surfing and then leave. And I think it's really important, like that you relate to the local people, because you're coming to their place, so you have to be respectful, but also like leave something. If you can like go to a restaurant there or stay in a hotel, and then they'll see also the benefits of having surfers, like tourism from surfers, and then they'll also want to support the surfers and protect these waves because these provide benefits. So I think this is something we should always have in mind when we go surfing. It's that we are going as visitors. We should like act like if we're going to someone else's house. So you should talk and thank the local people for allowing you to be there.
Yeah, I think in a lot of places, the interests of the artisan fishermen and surfers are actually more aligned than less aligned. And generally, if those two groups work together, it's the most successful model for conservation. So in some of the other Peruvian places, I just think about a place like Lobitos, right, where the threat wasn't necessarily putting a pier or a jetty through the way, but it's oil extraction. That's not good for fishing communities. And so in some of these big, larger threats, when those two groups, user groups, come together, they can be quite effective. And I think my experience in Peru has been mostly working in Huanchaco, where the fishermen and the traditional artisan fishermen and the surfers are quite close, and they actually have quite a mutual respect because they kind of see each other sort of in the wave environment. And I think that's been a story where the fishermen and surfers have come together. And then similarly, in some projects outside of Peru that we've all been advising on, in Chile, for example, they've been working a lot to create a marine sanctuary. And a lot of that work was really contingent on bringing the local fishing communities along board to show why this will be beneficial also for their livelihoods, and not just allowing more fish, but more markets for fishermen to sell to. So I think there's actually quite an alignment. I mean, my dad's a commercial fisherman, so I'm always sort of sensitive to fishing. I understand both how much potential there is in fishing communities and how difficult they can be, because there's no more people on earth more difficult than fishermen.
Yeah.
Other than surfers, maybe.
It's a riskier economic model too, right? If you were just to align the interest just with the surfing community and rely on surf tourism, right, from outsiders, the local communities would be hurting right now, especially with COVID, right? Versus having something that's more diverse and ties in a broader set of stakeholders to help bring livelihood to the community. It makes more sense to have both sides aligned from a sustainability standpoint, right? We are getting a lot of great questions, and thank you again for those of you that are providing questions for us. I'm going to try to weave in a few. And one of the questions was, and we kind of started talking about this with Chile, but one of the questions is, how can this law be replicated in other countries like Colombia? I think, Bruno, you talked about something very unique and not unique, which is two sides coming together and having a conversation. But there is definitely a uniqueness about what happened in Peru. And, can this be replicated in other countries? And Nick, I know you spent a lot of time thinking about this as well.
Yeah, I think it's completely replicable. Like, you can replicate it for sure in different countries. Like Chile is also trying to already propose something similar. Brazil also. But I just wanted to be able to say, based on our research and what we've been working with Save the Waves, we saw that there's 3 different ways of protecting surf breaks legally. Like thinking of like a framework, one is how to use federal laws or national level laws that protect surf breaks for a specific, because they recognize that the surf breaks should be a legal entity. In different countries, rivers are a legal entity. And this is the first time where we can recognize that a surf break has certain criteria, has a certain type of seabed, has a certain types of swell, things that you can actually justify technically. So you can create a legal entity that you can provide some rights, and it's that's what we're trying to explain to people. It's it's a natural resource. It's an ecosystem service, but it's a surf break, and it's actually a mixture of both. But
I was just going to say it's both.
Yeah, it's a mixture of both, and so. Yeah, we put it more like a cultural ecosystem service because it allows you for recreation and but anyway, there's that view. then you have other countries where marine spatial planning is something that you can done at the federal level, or if there's a decentralized government, you can also do it at the local or regional level. So in those cases, you can use your coastal commission, or that's what happens in New Zealand, Australia, where they have like all these acts based on social on zoning of the marine environment, and you recognize that one use is surfing and recreation, so it has specific use conditions. And then you also have like protected areas, which especially like are a recognition to emblematic areas around the world, no? And you have certain categories for protected areas, and we have seen that there's many surf breaks that exist within protected area boundaries. What we have not seen is that protected areas are being recognized, especially for protecting a surf break. And I think that's something that we have to change within the conservation movement, because there's thousands of people that surf. It's a very important group of people that love the ocean. And you have like many places where you protect sites for people to watch birds, which of course is part of biodiversity, but why not surf breaks? Why do you protect a waterfall? And of course, that waterfall has to be protected, but then not a place like Mavericks or Pico Alto or Chicama or Cabo Blanco, no? Like, or Nazaré, no? Like, it's like this majestic place that, so I think we have to change a little bit the idea of protected areas in that sense. And if that's even too difficult, maybe let's create a new regime for a protected area that is more focused on spaces where people can connect positively with nature. I think like the idea of protected areas is too much ingrained in biodiversity. Like, and nowadays, like we need more spaces that are close to the urban settings, where you have a positive connection with nature, no? And surf breaks are just exactly that, no?
Yeah, I just wanted to, amazing what Bruno said. I think we all feel like identify. And I think it's not only important for surfers or even ocean lovers. I think as a lot of people like can stand and watch an amazing waterfall and say, wow, this is nature. It can happen exactly the same with my mom that doesn't surf watching Pico Alto. It's like nature expressing itself like in an amazing way. So I think that's a reason enough to protect these places.
Yeah, I think we've been thinking a lot about this, kind of this question about sort of what's the best strategy. At Save the Waves, as these guys know, we've been kind of working on it together. We've set this big goal of protecting 1,000 surf ecosystems around the world. And the way to do it is going to be there's going to be a lot of different ways, and however we can get that to be protected, i.e. the ecosystem intact, the breaking wave continuing to break in the way that's rideable and adds joy and value to our lives, I think is the important part. I think with the Peruvian model, there are lots of places where this is going to be an applicable way, but it has been a long path. So I think we have to know that going in, is that it has taken, sort of 13 plus years to get to the successful point where Peru is. So it'll be hard to do it sort of overnight and get everything, just to temper expectations. But I think in some places that's definitely the best way to protect the most places the fastest, which I think should be kind of our objective. On some of the other places that we have been kind of working and looking through this, we've been working a lot with Conservation International in a couple different specific regions. And one of the things that's right now in sort of production is a paper that looks at surfing within sort of biodiversity hotspots, but specifically key biodiversity areas. So places that are designated as key places to create marine protected areas or protected areas. So we've actually done a study to see how many surf breaks are out there, what percentage of them fall within key biodiversity areas, or what percentage of them fall within pre-existing protected area frameworks. And so we're going to kind of spit out this number of saying these are actually the places that need to be protected sort of at a global scale. So we've been analyzing that quite a bit. And then I think one of the exciting things is there's just a lot of movement in a lot of countries. And I think we're forming more and more tools to be able to tackle these, whether it's creating a law and campaigning in the way that Asta Putuola did, which I believe is completely replicable and there's a model to point to, or whether it's creating surf protected area networks. So networks of surfing areas that fall under one sort of jurisdiction, like when we're working on that in Mexico and Indonesia, and hopefully moving down to sort of Fiji and some other places with Conservation International. But I think, Bruno made this point when we were talking earlier. It's sort of there isn't just there's not really a silver bullet to protecting these really important places. It's sort of find the model that's going to be the best and find the groups that can work together as a coalition with the most capacity to get it done. Because, in part, what I think is exciting about the concept of protecting surf ecosystems is that it gets us out of this mindset of saying, okay, do we protect the ocean with marine protected areas and it goes up to the high tide line? Or do we protect the land that goes down to the high tide line? It kind of breaks through that artificial construct, because a lot of the issues that we see around marine and coastal conservation are things that come from the land that flow into the sea. And I think that's the thing about surfing, is it makes us realize that that is the connection between those two dynamic systems that give us so much. And that if we can kind of break down those artificial divisions between land and sea and say, actually, this is one thing, I think then we're going to really advance not just surfing conservation, but actual conservation.
So one
go
last
ahead.
thing, sorry, one last thing I wanted to add. It's like, yeah, the mechanism can be different, and Bruno and Nick have said really clear like the different ways. But I think one thing is really important is like we need to engage people, citizens. Like when we started Asla Portuola, we already had Conservamos por Naturaleza as a platform, and Conservamos por Naturaleza works involving people in conservation actions through different campaigns. So we knew already the power of citizens, of people to create, if they get organized, to create something amazing. So I think this is key, like with whatever path you decide to take or do to protect waves, you have to involve citizens and make this like a big movement. It cannot come from up to down, but it has to be from the bottom.
If I could just add something and give you guys just a huge compliment, I think that's what's been so effective about your campaign, is that there was a degree of top down because it was a federal law that came from the top to protect these places. But the way that you guys organized it and the vision behind it of really finding a local true champion for their place to share the burden of getting the studies done, of getting it registered, of fundraising, of being really invested into their place, that tackles a whole other set of issues that I'm sure you guys could just talk to a senator or somebody and say, yes, make the decree for the waves, and here's the registry, and check all the boxes, and then your waves are all protected. But if local people aren't invested and don't care, is it really protected? And I think that's why I have so much respect for what you guys do. It's just that vision of seeing, okay, we need to involve communities to be the driver, not us driving for other people, I think is really laudable.
I have a question from Susanna in Lima that I really want to get in. And Carolina, it's for you. Are many female surfers in Peru involved in conservation efforts? How hard is it to be a female surfer in Peru?
I think being a female surfer in Peru, has changed in the last years. I think it used to be harder, but when Sofia Mulanovic became world champion, I think it switched the perspective and motivated a lot of more women to get in the water. You still see, like as the same as around the world, way less women in the water, but I think you see more and more each time. And yeah, I think the ones that do surf have been involved in conservation. I think you just need, I don't see a difference between women and men, but you just have to give people the opportunity to get involved. Like sometimes when you are not in the conservation movement, you don't know what to do. You know, like you want to do something, I want to like protect the nature or do something, but everything seems so chaotic that you don't know where to put your efforts. So that's what we try to do, to make it easy, like to say, hey, these are the ways that you can get involved, and from easy things like, yeah, donate or get involved, doing some different actions, but we just need to give this opportunity to people. And I've seen, and we've seen that when we give this opportunity, people and females do get involved at a big level.
Got it. You know, you know what a blooper reel is, or the at the end of the movie where they put in outtakes?
Yeah.
This is a question for me. Were there any funny outtakes that should have been, that happened while filming the movie that come to mind, that were, you will always remember, I guess, as funny moments, but they weren't in the film?
I don't know if for this specific film, like we've been doing like 100 short films with Conservamos, and I can tell you a lot, like from our first ever trip, like we were in this like little car, like going through the desert, and it got into fire. Like we almost, like, there's so many things to tell, but for this specific movie, actually everything went out quite smoothly. Like and we also work a lot with archive, with I have to like really like acknowledge and I want to say, like, there were people like Gianfranco Newman who gave us all their material, like more for free, like all the water shooting, like you'll see in the film, and it's really beautiful. Like it's all his artwork, and so that was amazing. Like so many photographers and filmmakers in Peru like gave us their things. I honestly cannot think of a specific blooper right now. That's why at the end we put this massive, amazing, like long barrel from Joaquin del Castillo, like at the end of the movie, like just to see that the wave's still out there and it's like still like barreling and beautiful.
I have a funny blooper story. It's not exactly in the film, but it's the last time that we all screened the film together, and was the last time we were together. It's actually this picture right here. We were in Chicama all together, and we were taking 6 people there to go meet Bruno and Carolina and surf and get to know some of the projects. And we missed a flight, and then we lost all of our baggage. And it was this perfectly timed swell. So we were getting there on the day of this big swell to Chicama. And I was like, Bruno, everyone wants to leave. I don't think I'm gonna come. And he just texted me his picture and he goes, look at this, come now. So he showed up with no clothes, no wetsuits, no boards. So Bruno outfitted me with all of his clothes, which I subsequently stole for 2 years. Finally got him back. And so this
month.
What's that?
You had this sweatshirt for like 1 year, I think.
Yeah, no, it was over a year. Definitely. I had like pairs of his shorts for over a year. And he said, could you send my shorts back? So I had to send them with our staff that was going back down. But I have to thank these guys, because without them, I would have had nothing. So I'm wearing this is actually a picture of me on the longest wave of my life. Not the best wave, but the longest wave of my life at Chicama, with the borrowed stuff that they rounded up. So I've got like an XL wetsuit on right now that's like hanging off.
Soggy, long johns, Nick.
Yes, the woolen long johns.
It was beautiful that day. Like Chicama was like actually the day before they arrived was even better, I have to say, but it was still nice when they arrived there. It was like 1.5 meters, like all the day, like with massive swell, like but Chicama, I know if people that are watching have, like, most of the people know about Chicama. It's amazing when it's big, because there's a section called El Hombre that you can get some barrels there, and it's really long. But it's more perfect when Chicama, when it's not so big, like the perfectly feeling wave that connects the whole like bay. It's actually on the days that it's not like too big, so like you don't need to go in a huge swell in order to have a really fun time there.
Scott, have you been there?
No, I'm dying to. I was going to ask Bruno for the last question, like, when's a good time for me to bring my 9, 6, or 10-foot gun? Because that's when I would want to come down and surf with all of you. I've had friends that have gone and they love it. And it's the thing for me is that film was so beautiful because it represents a place that so many people from around the world can go and enjoy. And it must be so, I mean, it must be just a very special and spiritual place to go and visit. But I will be there without a doubt at some point, hopefully with you, Bruno, and also with you, Carolina.
April and May, I will say.
April and May?
Yeah, April and May gets like you're still going out of the summer. So the swell tends to be more organized. It's quite active. So if you want to come to surf like Pico Alto and that kind of waves, like that's the best time of the year. Like you already are getting the southern hemisphere is really active. If you want to go for the north of Peru, like you can still come from October till March, and you have all the north swells starting to come. So basically, like all the swells hit Hawaii, or also like Mavericks, and then they start coming down. No.
Yeah.
So for that, like I would say, like November, December, it's quite good to be around the north of Peru.
Well, I live in Half Moon Bay, so if ever you want to come out here and surf Mavericks, you've got a place you can come and hang out at.
Nick said that Pico Alto is like Mavericks, but I think Pico Alto is more like a big sunsets, like in Hawaii, like Oahu. It's not a slap where you go and try to die, but I'll take it.
But I'll bet he'll be there next year. Like,
you have to know, like Carolina, like sometimes you like we were talking like yesterday about the story of Carolina, no? But Carolina had been like windsurfing her life, and she came to Peru, and honestly, like we knew that we need someone that had all this energy and the ability to capture, like with the charisma of capturing all the surfing community, because especially with all these male egos that exist in the surfing community, and we needed like somebody that could like organize all these people like wanting to do stuff, and we needed to put like 200,000 K to collect them to protect surf breaks. And when they Caro arrives to the office and says like, yeah, I've been traveling, but I want to be in Peru and serve my community and my country. And okay, we have this idea, and just like, we need to get this amount of money. She says, okay, I'll do it, you know? And you know, she will always say yes. And there's a story about Caro that she had never surfed in a surfboard. She's always been in a windsurf. And then we just learned a couple of days ago that somebody told her that they wanted to tow her into like these pretty like solid waves in the south of Lima, no? Not Pico Alto, but also like some solid waves. And she gets towed into this wave, and then like she just goes straight, no? And the guy's like, what happened to you, Caro? Why didn't you turn? Like, I've never turned without a mast, no? Like, and then of course she's like, take me again, no? Like, so just for you guys to feel the energy of this amazing, powerful, talented human.
Amazing.
are you clapping that I did a crazy thing?
I'm just clapping that you went straight. I'm clapping at all of those, everything that story, and that you went back out again. That's awesome. One other question, not to get us off of giggling and back to some serious stuff, but there's a great question from Sebastian Monterey. How were you able to get Patagonia involved in the film? They seem like they would have been good partners.
Yeah, I know, like Patagonia like came to Peru with like a person that already knew the work of Conservamos por Naturaleza. So I wanted to say like the model of engaging people, like the local people across Peru, came because we had already been doing a lot of work through Conservamos por Naturaleza, which is this platform that was engaging citizens across Peru.
Bruno, actually, after you talk about Patagonia, I'm sure people would love to hear about your organization too, if you could talk about it.
Yeah. So Conservamos por Naturaleza is basically a platform that wanted to make conservation mainstream. No, like what we saw is like Peru is this mega diverse country, but the people that were doing conservation like were only specialists. So the idea behind Conservamos was, as Carolina was saying, like to create campaigns where you democratize like the access to conservation. Like you create like specific campaigns with a clear goals, and you were asking for specific skills or actions where people could get involved. So that was the idea of like how we also like created As La Portuola, no? at one point, one of our friends like was really inspired by Conservamos por Naturaleza, and she was the person that was representing Patagonia in Peru, and she asked us to do a film festival. So she said I want to do a movie night, no? And she said like, I have these films from Patagonia, which were, what's the name of this amazing film from Patagonia? It's all the body surfing guys with,
Not fish
Malloy.
people, no.
no, it's like
Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water. Yeah. So she says like, yeah, we have this movie, and we had all these short films, because in the beginning of Conservamos, what we did was we were traveling across Peru, and we were visiting the places where people were conserving their lands, and we were making a 3 to 5 minute short story from each one of them and sharing their stories in the cities, so the people in the cities could help them. No, so at the end, like she said, like, I wanna rent this theater, and you can put your movies, and we put ours, and we do a film festival, and that's how we started the relationship with Patagonia. We did that film festival. Now we do it every year. But this one with COVID, and then they started to really like help us in all our projects. Like we had one idea, and we will reach out to them, and they will give us like the initial seed to make that happen. No, and Patagonia helped us to do the website for creating Ata Portuola, and a little bit of funds to get Carolina actually hired to start working on this, like part-time, and then. When we already had been working with them for a while, they helped us to protect a wave, and then finally to actually do a film, no? So it could go internationally. And really, like the people in Patagonia, they've become so good friends with us. Like there's a friendship, there's a bond, like, and it's so inspiring also to go to the headquarters and see like how they're like promoting, like to have families in the organization. Like it's we really like admire the work they're doing and the principles.
I'll tell you really quickly, Let My People Go Surfing was the book that inspired me to go get my master's in environmental science.
Nice.
And if Dean
did you
Carter
guys
from
run-
Patagonia is watching, I hope you know that. So
Did you guys run the Adventure Film Festival? No,
That's North.
that was a different one. Because yeah, they ran that in Chile, and that was the first time we collaborated a lot with Patagonia. But that was at that time. They ran it in Chile, and Save the Waves was involved somehow. I don't even remember. But that was the first time I got to meet Yvonne and Ramon Navarro in the same time. They came together. It was the same time that we all sort of three met, and that kicked off the stuff that we did in Chile with the Fisherman's Son and a bunch of other stuff, which I think also like really helped garner more support for what you guys are doing. And
Totally.
Vice versa to bring it.
how did the three, we talked about Patagonia, but how did Save the Waves get involved in the film, and how did the three of you get connected?
Go, Caro.
They posted a looking for extras in Lima, and I happened to be walking around and I found it. So they just
At the beginning, when we did the campaign, we were like, reaching out to everyone that was working in wave protection and like local and international stakeholders. And I think we were stalking Nick. We sent a lot of emails, and then we got connected. We had the first time we met was in Skype, and we instantly clicked because we are basically doing like fighting for the same things. And I don't know when was the first time we met like physically.
Actually, I have to say something. The relationship with Save the Waves like started like way time ago. Like the first time that we ever got any support from an international organization to protect Peruvian surf breaks was a very like little grant, but that allowed us to make a film at that time to protect Cabo Blanco, like the wave that is like the whole history that is in the Alamar. It's out Cabo Blanco. And we got, I think, like $600 or something that we were able to pay like a local filmmaker to do a film to create awareness about this. We did that with Josh Berry, right, Nick?
Josh Berry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like a lot of years ago. So that was our initial relationship. And then it was thanks to a World Surfing Resave for Huanchaco, where we were in the same email, like Save the Waves. One of the first World Surfing reserves was Huanchaco, and and we were in the same mailing list. So thanks to the people from Huanchaco, we had that connection already with Nick, and that's how we started like talking to them.
I want to add about Huanchaco because when we got the regulation for the law approved, we didn't know what exactly the process was to register each wave. So Save the Waves was already working on doing the technical file to protect Huanchaco, and we were working with the Surfing Federation to protect Chicama. So we were like together and coordinating like how we're gonna do this. Like it was gonna be the first protected waves. Like it was
Legally.
Remember, Chicama got first, and like 2 weeks later, Huanchaco was approved, and it was like the first 2 protected waves, and yeah, the connection started there, and now it's been like years of talking
for years. I think actually originally La Herradura campaign in like 2002 or 3 or something in there, when it was really bad. Save the Waves was involved with that with Will Henry, even before Josh Berry. So Javier Fernandez worked, I think, with them with Acoplo. Like, I found some stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, we were doing this. And there were some small films made. I don't even know exactly what that was, but then Huanchaco was the first thing that I was involved with UL. So I think Bruno and I were like in emails, but we didn't go connect like this exactly. So it was like a lot of people would be on the email chains, and Huanchaco was actually gonna be the first wave protected, but we were spending the time kind of trying to figure out the process. So I think we started the process first, and then we had to find all the money because we pulled little tiny chunks of money from different places to cover the studies, and that just took a long time. And then Chicama was like, they just were a little bit more kind of organized.
Sorry, you had the Carolina charisma. She was going to the Navy every week, every day, like trying to convince the people from the Navy. At the end, like.
It's amazing.
I just want to add that definitely for La Herradura, I was not in that connection because I was 12 years old.
Yeah, no, it was before my time, but I know I saw some stuff there. It was like, I know there was work with Acoplo and even like, I think, people back in the day of like Javier Warcaya was part of that too, right?
Yeah.
And I think they worked all together. But really for now, like this group was sort of around Huanchaco and as the first steps in the Hasta Portuola campaign. And then, actually, I think I got a weird email from Greg Long that was like, there's this guy, Bruno, that reached out to me and he's doing this campaign. You need to meet him. And then that's, I think, I can't remember anything anymore.
That's an influential outreach.
Was a good, so usually I respond to those types of emails. Like,
I bet.
Because he had not responded to me before.
So awesome. It was, but something like that. And then we started to work together. And I remember the first time Carolina we met was in Chile. La Serena was like the Impact conference. So we organized a panel together. I just found a picture of that actually the other day.
It's like the cool thing really, Scott, about the whole thing is like, like right now, like Nick talking about like how they were involved with Herradura and Javier Huarcaya. It's like, there's all these stories that start to come out. Like, and I have to say, like, some of the things that came out from the film came from these conversations while surfing. Like, I remember this beautiful conversation with Rodolfo de Jarano. Rodolfo de Jarano, like we call it like El Tío Gori, and it's this like pioneer surfer that has always been looking for new waves in Peru. And he actually was one of the persons that went to Cabo Blanco and got the rocks out of the sea when they had the truck like already putting all these rocks to create a rock pile. You have these stories, and we knew that he was the only one that had like film of Cabo Blanco without a pier, but we never had those filmed because it was somewhere in his house, And there was all these stories that started to come out, or we found out that there was this film that could have the footage because somebody surfing in this place told us that they had seen a movie. It's so interesting to start to learn about this process, no? And I think that's one of the things that Alamar has also get to people, being able to write a story that is accurate, it's based on research on how the waves were protected, no?
We have one time probably for one more question before we got to wrap things up. Where are, this is from the audience, where are some of the next surf places to be protected in Peru?
Caro.
In Peru right now, we are working on protecting the north, the waves of Máncora, Órganos, and El Ñuro. Sometimes we pack a group of waves that are nearby, so it's a little bit cheaper to do the technical studies. It's like a big pack of 6 waves protected, and they're very special waves. Right now, I am here in the north of Peru, so yeah, we invite everyone who wants to be part of this movement to visit our website, that is hazlaportuola.pe, and see what exactly the places we're protecting now, and to support us. And yeah, also we have other waves that are already in the Navy, and we are just waiting for the approval. That are 2 waves in the north of Lima that are Bermejo and Playa Grande, and also a wave in the south of Lima that is Puerto Viejo. So it's these are the next 10 waves that are hopefully gonna be officially protected this year. Well, now everything's changed with the COVID-19, and things are taking a little bit more time, but that's the plan.
There's 33 surf breaks already protected in Peru so far. The initiative has 4 years since we launched it, so it's 33 surf breaks, and our plan is to have. I am
coming down in April. It's official.
All right.
I'm gonna put myself in full hazmat suit and wetsuit underneath that hazmat suit.
I would say one thing to cut to the chase here. So Carolina, for Máncora, Órganos, it's about $6,000, right, to protect those 6 waves.
We're missing 5,000. We're missing 5,000.
So here's for the people that are out there and watching, they can go to hazlaportuola.pe, and if you can help this whole crew that's doing such good work get to that $5,000 goal, we're going to protect 6 additional places that really mean a lot. And these are not just backwater beach breaks that no one cares about. These are iconic places in Peru, in Peruvian surfing. So I think we can do it. I know it's been hard to raise funds outside of Peru, but I think this is a really good audience in which to do it. So we can get there. I know I feel like I'm dialing for dollars at the end here, but
I was just going to say, Nick, that is the perfect place, Nick, to cut it, because it gives everybody an action item and it goes to a great cause. And so I'm happy you brought that up. And I hope the 3 of you collaborate on something again, because you put together a beautiful piece of artwork and storytelling through Alamar. And if you haven't watched the film, do yourself a favor, go watch it. It's relatively short, but you'll be captivated the entire time you watch it. And also make sure you check out the other surf-related films. There's another one that comes from Peru that the International Ocean Film Festival is showcasing. And also keep coming out and watching the other Q&As. Like I said, I was going to be the worst moderator of the International Ocean Film Festival. So you have some amazing people to look forward to, including Carl Safina, like I said. So anyway, I just want to again thank Nick, Bruno, Carolina, and the audience. Most importantly, maybe we can give them a round of applause for joining so late in the evening. Thank you. We will see you next year at Surf Night, hopefully in person, with Bruno, Caro, and Nick, and myself. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Scott. Thank you, everybody.